For Officer Juan Wilson, fighting heroin is not just his job, it's his passion. As a task force officer for the St. Louis Division of the Drug Enforcement Administration, he takes the fight personally. A typical day for DEA officer Juan Wilson includes investigating leads and shutting down drug dealers. More specifically, he wants to find the person who sold the drugs that caused somebody to overdose. He didn't start his law enforcement career with the intention of battling drugs. After graduating from the police academy, Wilson worked as a patrol officer, but it didn't take long for him to know he wanted to do something more.
I really wanted to get into narcotics. I know I wanted to get into a specialty field, and I thought that might be the best way to kind of serve my community.
Wilson first knew he wanted to focus on heroin when he lost his father-in-law to an overdose. He spent about 2.5 years as an undercover task force officer in hopes of getting drug dealers off the streets. But a normal day at work turned into a day that he would never forget.
Towards the end of my task force time there, I got robbed at gunpoint. That kind of put a lot of things in perspective, especially since at the time my son was going through chemotherapy and radiation treatment from brain cancer. So I wanted to kind of slow things down.
So Wilson moved from undercover in St. Charles to being part of the DEA's task force team. But slow is not the right word to describe his job. Officer Wilson is currently working on 35 overdose cases, many of which are right here in St. Charles County. DEA Group Supervisor Kevin Merkel knew immediately that Wilson would fit in with his team.
I recognize the talent that he has for doing the overdose and the passion that he has doing community outreach and talking with folks about the dangers of addiction. I know that he's more involved than any other policeman that I've ever worked with.
You do one thing, there's so much more that needs to be done. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. And so I'm always trying harder and harder and harder to try to, be more vigilant in the community.
One group Wilson is involved in is Walking for Wellness. He became active after noticing a pattern. He says families who lost a family member to heroin were being treated poorly by law enforcement. He feels joining the Walking for Wellness group was a way to end that cycle. St. Peter's mother, Vigna, lost her daughter to heroin 3 years ago. She started the Walking for Wellness group to raise awareness and says Wilson is a key player in the local fight against drugs.
As a police officer, you can't be my enemy in this particular case. You have to be my friend, and vice versa. He takes the time to meet you, he comes to your house, he learns about your family. He has truly been such a very kind, gentle soul.
Having 2 children of his own, Wilson understands the fear of having a child get involved in heroin, and he keeps that in mind every time he sees a young person die from an overdose.
Every victim from a heroin overdose that I've either arrived on scene or saw the photos, they're still in my head. They don't go away.
One way Wilson is visible in the community is through social media. A strong presence on Facebook and Instagram has helped people who need support after being victimized by heroin find Wilson. You can find his public figure page on Facebook under the name Juan Wilson or follow him on Instagram. For LUTV News, I'm Cassie Hall.